I like the trains. We're going to, precision. This is Precision Scheduling Commission. I'll call the meeting to order. Will you call the roll, please, Doug?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Alvarado.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Burke. Commissioner Dunn.
Present.
Commissioner Gilmetti. Commissioner Gordino. Commissioner Kehoe.
Here.
Commissioner Tavaloni.
I'm here.
Commissioner Van Kennijenberg.
Here.
Chair Inman.
I'm here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 2. Welcome to the region. James.
Chair Inman, Commissioners, I saw many of you last night, but I just want to give you a very warm welcome to the Sacramento region. A little bit of a story about not just where this region has been or who we are, but really where we're going. The Sacramento Area Council of Governments, and again, James Corliss, Executive Director of SACOG, we're 6 counties and 22 cities. What's unique about us is that every jurisdiction in our 6-county region that stretches from UC Davis to Lake Tahoe has a seat at our board table each month. This is the image that you may be most familiar with. You think about the iconic Tower Bridge framing the city of Sacramento. That skyline is changing fast. We, in the last year, had more U-Haul one-way moves into our region than any other region in the United States. We are changing dramatically. And the city of Sacramento is has been in the top 3 of the large cities in terms of growth rates in California. But zoom back a little bit, and this is really perhaps a more better image of the diversity of our region. And zoom back a little bit further, and you don't have to go too far outside the downtown core, just 10 miles to the north, and you'll find some of the most productive agricultural land in California. We grow a quarter of the value of all of our rice here in the Sacramento region. And I believe last night you ate at Mulvaney's restaurant, Farm to Fork, famous for that. But Farm to Fork food needs farm to market transportation. Our growers need access to roads, to rails, to the Port of West Sacramento, but increasingly to the Port of Oakland, because the growers in our region here export to more than 125 countries from around the world, and that traffic congestion between us and the Bay Area is actually hampering our economic growth. But we're proud not just of our geographic diversity, but of our cultural diversity. In fact, we're one of the most diverse regions in the United States in terms of race, ethnicity, so much so that we're a national marketing test bed for advertisers. But we have festivals like this. This is the Sikh Festival, happens every November up in Yuba City, one of the largest Sikh populations outside India. Put it on your calendars, November 2nd and 3rd. You won't be disappointed. Come to Yuba City for the Sikh Festival. We're increasingly, though, not just our 6 counties, but we know that we're part of a larger 26-county Northern California mega region. We're tied increasingly to the Bay Area. In fact, we call all the folks that are moving here Bay Area mortgage refugees. They are coming with their U-Hauls, and they are changing the face of our region. We understand that those folks are going back and forth with increasing frequency, and so investments like you've helped us make in the Capitol Corridor, the San Joaquin Corridor, and the ACE trains that unite us not just to the Bay Area, but to the rest of the San Joaquin Valley are critical. And then finally, with a face to the future, we're proud of the innovation that we are hatching here. We've got a program I've told you about in the past called Civic Lab. It's launched projects like this with jump bikes. We actually have one of the most successful bike share systems in the country right now, more than 6 rides per bike per day. We are actually getting more jump bike rides than Uber rides in the grid of Sacramento. It is absolutely taking off. Just across the river in West Sacramento, just across that other Tower Bridge, we've got a great experiment going on by a private provider called Via. Via is doing point-to-point transportation. It's not just open on an app, but you can call it. Teenagers are using this service. We've talked to senior citizens who say they've seen friends for the first time they haven't seen in 20 years because they can get from point to point and get to people. It's affordable. It's in partnership with the city of Sacramento and with us, and it's a real success story. And finally, we were proud to win one of the test beds for the new Ollie shuttle. This is an autonomous 3D printed shuttle from Local Motors. This was hatched out of our Civic Lab program. It ran around the campus of Sac State University for 3 months, and we're about to launch another one in Rancho Cordova. I want to end and introduce my guest here, my partner, by telling you that I believe, and I'm a relative newcomer still to this region, but we, I think, in the past, have been defined by our past. People think of the Transcontinental Railroad in Sacramento, just a mile from here, less than a mile, right? In downtown is where the Transcontinental was started on this side of the country. But increasingly, I believe we're looking to the future. And increasingly, we're a region that understands that we have to innovate, we have to think about new forms of mobility, and we have to do things like this, which is our inaugural year of our Youth Leadership Academy. One of our board members, Jay Chenier, felt very strongly that we, old folks like me, were making decisions on a 20-year transportation plan that would affect folks like Calais here. So Calais Almeida is one of our Youth Leadership Academy graduates. We had a 6-month intensive program. They just graduated, and we really kind of schooled them on transportation, regional planning, housing, the future issues that are facing California, what we hope will be tackled by our future leaders. So I wanted Calais to say a couple of words.
Thank you. Hi, so I'm Cully Almeida. I go to Oak Ridge High School, and I just finished my junior year. And I've been a part of the YLA for this year, the Youth Leadership Academy. It's been really nice. So thank you all for having me here. I'm here representing the first SACOG Youth Leadership Academy, also known as the YLA. And on top of representing the YLA right now, I am also the face of the generation that you are all making decisions for. To put this into perspective, SACOG's long-range transportation plan that is being updated right now, the MTP looks out 20 years from now when I'll be 36 to 37 years old. I might have a family by then, and most likely autonomous vehicles will be the new normal. I think it's important for youth like me to be involved early on and learn about agencies like SACOG and the Transportation Commission, so we are able to advocate for good transportation policy that will affect our communities, and so we can be civically engaged adults deciding where electric charging stations are located, so my electric car won't die on me coming from the airport at 1:00 a.m. Right before school. And because of the YLA, I learned about what SACOG does in terms of transportation, land use planning, and the impacts that it has together to fund the projects that get built in places I live and visit. And the YLA offered exposure to elected officials at the local and state agencies, and helps both youth and decision makers bridge the gap between us. And I hope my presence here will put a face on who is impacted by the long run with your decisions and investments, and that you bring the youth to the table when decisions are being made about our future. So thank you.
Thank you. I know that I could not have done that in high school, but I think his words are really prescient. And thank you for all of you. Thank you we had members of Congress meet with our Youth Leadership Academy. We had state legislators, and we had our board members, elected officials, basically try to also inspire them to get involved, to get engaged, to get civically engaged, and to run for office. So with that, welcome to the region.
I'd like to make a comment, and it's really inspiring to see a group of young men and women get involved in the process. So, my only request to you is not to get jaded, There's going to be a lot of walls you're going to run into, but it's young men and women like you that are going to solve the problems that we've been struggling with for a while. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, I agree. So it's great to have you here, and good luck. Okay, we are now, we've been joined by Senator McGuire, I believe. Is he here? Just want to come say a few words.
Madam Chair, good afternoon. I want to take a moment, first of all, for allowing me to momentarily crash your meeting today. And I got to say, I have rarely seen such a long agenda, 1,475 pages, and according to the chair, I only have 30 minutes. So, I'm kidding. She's about to throw a chair at me. But in all sincerity, I wanted just to start out today by saying thank you. Thank you to the Commission and your amazing staff over the last 4 years of helping us tackle some of the most critical challenges when it comes to transportation on the North Coast. The focus your Commission has had on both rural and urban regions of the state is not only greatly appreciated, but necessary. And it's necessary to ensure that we have a thriving transportation network in every corner of the Golden State. California's North Coast District stretches from the Golden State Bridge to the Oregon border and includes 7 counties, most of which are rural, traditionally underserved, and in desperate need of help. And time again, the California Transportation Commission and Caltrans have come through for these communities and brought us those needed projects and crucial transportation dollars. And I got to be honest, you've also provided for hope. Hope that we are going to be able to dig out of some of the economic morass that we have in some of the most rural regions in the United States of America. And I think a cornerstone project of that is the last chance grade. This section of Highway 101 is the lifeblood for one of the most rural regions of this great state, and it's been sliding into the Pacific Ocean since bears roamed. It's an economic lifeline for tens of thousands of residents. And as you know, we simply can't keep it within the right-of-way. The $50 million in funding that you have provided over the past 30 months to complete the environmental and geotechnical studies will allow for a permanent inland route to move forward, which will provide residents and certainty that they'll no longer be left stranded when the roadway washes out into the ocean. If it's okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to be able to focus also on the Sonoma Marin Narrows. We are so close to completing this project once and for all, and thanks to your support, the final allocation has come from your Commission, and after decades of mind-numbing commutes, you are going to be providing relief to tens of thousands of commuters every day and ensure that there are 3 lanes for the vast majority of 101 in Sonoma County, all the way to the Marin County line. There are just a few stretches of challenges that we have on the Marin side, and we know that we're going to be working with you and your capable staff to be able to get 3 lanes all the way through Marin and Sonoma County in the years to come. Madam Chair, I'd like to quickly focus on NCRA and the Great Redwood Trail, if that's all right. Thank you. We could not be doing this without you. There is nothing but good news on this front after many years of challenges, and that's to say it mildly. NCRA now has a new attorney who has quickly settled their 8-year-old lawsuit with their environmental impact report. We have new board members who actually understand the agency's new mission. $3 million is now in the budget for the state to complete the audit, to wind down NCRA and advance a boundary survey and complete an initial trail assessment. An additional $10.8 million will be allocated in the budget to help pay off their debts, which are significant, and advance deferred maintenance projects. And thanks to you and this entire commission, we're going to continue to be able to build critical segments of the Great Redwood Trail. You have been with us, the CTC, since the very beginning, when we started the changes at NCRA, and I cannot say thank you. I can't say thank you enough for your invaluable help. And final 2 items on your massive agenda, I'd like to be able to point to, first of all, tab 74, which is the Annie and Mary Blue Lake Trail. This has been in the process for many years, but with the turmoil at NCRA, was never able to be finalized. And now that everyone is on board, we are thrilled that NCRA has approved and this project is in front of you today. This trail will be the very tip of the Great Redwood Trail, and we so appreciate Caltrans' help. Madam Director, thank you. We want to say thank you to the CTC and, of course, to Ms. Branson, your director, for all of her help on getting this moved. And finally, Madam Chair, tab 94, and that's Highway 37. Highway 37, candidly, is a hot mess. This $10 million project will allow Caltrans to determine the best way to permanently protect the highway from continued flooding, and will examine various options from a raised structure to creating a higher levee. And as you know, this stretch of highway from Novato to Black Point has been closed twice in the last 2 years for multiple days, and several times over the last 5 years, which has sent a ripple effect throughout the entire Bay Area commute. And it causes havoc from the North Bay all the way to downtown San Francisco. And I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to work with Caltrans to advance this timeline, both on the environmental and engineering, to make sure that we get to the construction phase well before the 2026-2027 timeline. And I'd just like to end it here with 2 words. Thank you. You're innovative, you work hard, and you're able to get to yes. And if there are challenges, you're willing to be able to work through it. The CTC is an amazing partner. And I got to tell you, you are an unsung hero when it comes to transportation projects in this state. I want to say thank you to each of the commissioners. I want to say thank you to your amazing staff. I also want to acknowledge Caltrans for the partnership where we've been able to come together and start tackling these critical challenges on the North Coast. And it means a lot to be able to be here today and be happy to answer any questions or take any comments as well. Madam Chair, thank you so much for making time in your busy day.
Thank you. Any questions for Senator McGuire? Well, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come and speak to us and say thank you. So much appreciated. So
We couldn't
really
do it without you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members. Thank you.
Oh.
Senator McGuire,
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to thank you for recognizing our staff. In the state of nearly 40 million with less than 30 full-time equivalent employees, they do amazing work. So thank you for honoring their service and their success.
Mr. Commissioner, you're spot on. Director Branson brings a 2x4 to every meeting. We cannot say thank you enough to Ms. Branson, her very capable team. You are in wonderful hands, and with your leadership, we are getting a lot of work done. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Chair Frazier, Jeffrey Lighten.
Just wanted to mention that I was up in the area
Yes.
recently and looked at one of that project they had, that has to be relocated. There's 14 feet of overlay on that project. They have tried and tried and tried and just kept throwing money at it and throwing money at it. So this relocation is essential to the economy of that area. But I mean, it's not like from the lack of trying.
No, you're absolutely right. $58 million has been spent, thanks to you, thanks to Caltrans, over the last nearly 15 years to be able to save it right away. And Chair Frazier is spot on. I want to say thank you to Chair Frazier and Chair Bell for their work on transportation, and thanks for getting us SB1. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, then we will move on to item number 3, approval of minutes from May. We have a motion by Commissioner Gometti, a second by Commissioner Tavaloni. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, approval of minutes for the May 16th joint meeting with the Air Resources Board.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Van Konynenberg, a second by Commissioner Dunn. Is there discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Commission meetings for compensation, item 5. We have a motion by Commissioner Tavaloni, a second by Commissioner Alvarado. Is there discussion? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Abstaining? That motion carries. Item 6, Commission Executive Director Susan Branson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today I wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate Commissioner Gardino on his confirmation, on his appointment, confirmation by the Senate. So, Senate Rules Committee, congratulations. And I also wanted to take the opportunity, since I'm the first step, to welcome on board newly appointed Undersecretary Alyssa Kanov. And Alyssa, I've had a chance to talk with you and meet you a little bit. I'm truly looking forward to working with you, and so congratulations on your appointment, and thank you for being here today. And also, Director Berman, today is your last meeting with the commission. I wanted to sincerely congratulate you on your retirement. And, you know, we share our birthdays in common. And so she's my birthday friend. And Lori, I've enjoyed working with you, and I'm very happy for you and wish you well in retirement. With that, Commissioners, I wanted to share with you and everyone that on July 29th in Sacramento, we are holding a one-day transportation policy forum. This forum will focus on transportation infrastructure resiliency and policy changes that potentially could lead to increased transit ridership and other opportunities for increasing transit and improving transit. So we're hoping that there is great attendance. This is open. This is a forum open to the public. We have issued a save the date announcement. More information can be found on the Commission's website. The Commission also is in the process of planning for a tri-state meeting in Stevenson, Washington on September 17th and 18th. Everyone in California is welcome to join us at that tri-state commission meeting. That commission meeting, joint tri-state commission meeting, will focus primarily on rural issues. Also wanted to take this opportunity to introduce you to some of our new staff members. I shared with you at the last meeting, we have hired John Prey. He's a senior engineer, and he's assigned to assisting our engineers, other engineering staff working on the shop, asset management, and accountability and oversight. He is a civil engineering graduate from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. He has experience working in both the private sector and at Caltrans. And I'm going to ask John to please stand so that you know who he is. This is John, and Commissioners, just want to let you know in his short period of time, I have grown to really respect John, and I'm so thankful he's on our team. And I know that you'll all enjoy getting to know him and working with him as well. So thanks, John. And also, we have hired Bridget Driller, and Bridget is a senior transportation planner. She just recently joined the team this month, like last week or this week. And she holds a bachelor's degree in environmental policy. She has a master's degree in transportation technology, both from UC Davis. And she's she's worked at Caltrans. She's had a role in the California Transportation Plan work. And so as a part of our team, she will be working with Garth and Laura on really moving our focus on sustainability and environmental issues forward, and helping us work with the California Air Resources Board and other sustainability issues that cross-pollinate across all of our work at the Commission. So, Bridget, would you please stand? So this is Bridget Driller. Okay, thanks, Bridget. And then also on our staff, we have, I need to thank Director Berman. She has allowed us to bring on board Matt Hunter, who is not here with us today. He's working with us on a temporary assignment. He's a senior bridge engineer. He is working alongside our programming staff, learning a little bit about what it takes to program funding for projects. Also, I wanted to take the opportunity to especially thank the Caltrans Information Technology staff that have been assigned, and their consultants that have been assigned to assisting the Commission on the development of our new website that will launch in July 1st, and getting everything in order for accessibility requirements. This IT group at Caltrans has worked above and beyond, and I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledge them today. And on our staff, I wanted to acknowledge Amy McPherson for her leadership and making sure that what we do on our website and communicating with the public is accessible and in a format that's easily understood. And Amy, thank you very much, and also to the rest of your team. Okay, and then you will see on later on the agenda, the Local Streets and Roads Program, Alicia Sikora-Smith, there she is. She has worked above and beyond, making sure that we have almost nearly 100% compliance from all the cities and counties across the state to receive their apportionments. And I'm grateful, Alicia, to your hard work. And we have a few left, but Alicia will share with you, she has assurance we'll have all this done by August 1st. So Commissioners, that concludes my informational items. This is an action item. Commissioners, I seek your approval of the 2020 meeting calendar that is in your meeting materials.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gilmetti, a second by Commissioner Kehoe. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? That motion carries. Thank you, Susan. We'll move on to item 7, Commissioner reports. Any of my fellow colleagues? Yes, Commissioner Van Kennijenberg.
Madam Chair, I would like to report that on June the 3rd, we had a joint meeting with the 8 San Joaquin Valley counties and Chair Nichols of the Air Resources Board, following up on our meeting from April. And we had a very productive discussion, and I came away very optimistic that relationships will improve there. So,
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we will move on to, I'm sorry, yes, Commissioner Dunn.
Just also on behalf of I know Susan said this, but on behalf of commissioners, if you will allow me the honor to thank Lori for her decades of service in mobility from San Diego, Caltrans, and beyond, and do wish her very well. It's a long time in public service, and it just can't be one sentence to thank someone, and so forgive me for taking this moment to also thank you, Lori. You've been a big help on many, many issues, and even in a short tenure as director, I know that there's much more in your life as you refresh and retool, and you'll be back at it. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So ditto, Lori, from all of us. So, yeah, we thank you and wish you well. Okay, we are now going to move on to item number 8, and we're delighted to have Alyssa joining us for her first meeting to represent the Office of the Secretary.
Thank you so much, Chair Inman, and to Executive Director Branson for the warm welcome. I'm thrilled to be here today to join your meeting and representing Secretary David Kim, who will be starting on Monday, July 1st. So no one more excited. I know there's a lot of people excited, but then I can put away my roller skates for a little bit, and very excited to have him here. Really looking forward to working with the Commission and your staff to do all of the incredible work that you're doing here. So thank you.
Do we have any questions? No? Okay, we will move on. Lori.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, Commissioners, and Chair Inman and Commissioners. There's one personnel appointment I want to share with you, and you'll be meeting Amy Choi later during the meeting. She has been appointed to the position of Caltrans Division of Aeronautics Division Chief. And Amy has a very impressive aeronautics background. She is a multi- and single-engine rated commercial pilot and flight instructor. Her love of aviation began in Lansing, Michigan, which is right next door to where I grew up. So, with U.S. Airways, she worked in the airline industry, holding various aviation-related jobs, including a station manager. Amy was appointed the role of the Training Center Manager for Airline Transport Professionals, or ATP, and instituted the private pilot program at Sacramento Executive Airport. Her career with Caltrans Aeronautics began in 2011 as an aviation safety officer. She left Caltrans for a while to get additional experience as an airport operations officer and duty manager at Sacramento International Airport. She is a graduate of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University with a Bachelor of Science in Professional Aeronautics with minors in Management and Aviation Safety. She also has an MBA in Aviation and is currently finishing a second Master of Science in Leadership. She holds certifications from the American Association of Airport Executives. She holds several certifications. I'm really excited to have Amy on board because I think she's going to do a lot for our aeronautics program. And so you'll get a chance to hear from her later. I also wanted to give you a little update on what we are doing for small businesses. As you know, we are committed to fostering a level playing field for all small and disadvantaged businesses, and we're trying to do everything we can to make it easier for more businesses to come and do work for Caltrans. So we have small businesses, includes business enterprises that are new or have limited contracting experience with Caltrans, as well as businesses owned by women, minorities, disabled veterans, LGBT, and other disadvantaged groups. SB 1 and SB 103 require Caltrans to focus our outreach efforts on increasing opportunities for new and limited contracting small businesses. A new small business has been certified but has not received a Caltrans contract in 2 years. A limited contracting business is one that is certified but has received fewer than 5 contracts or less than $250,000 from Caltrans in the last 2 years. As of July 31, 2018, Caltrans had a little over 15,000 new and 628 limited contracting small businesses in its database. And as of May of 2019, these businesses had received 339 Caltrans contracts. On average, they were each awarded about a $70,000 contract. Of those subcontractors, 104 are small business, 203 are micro business, 15 are disabled veteran business enterprise, and 11 are disadvantaged business enterprise. And the most common work they do for Caltrans is roadway excavation and traffic control. And we'll continue to reach out to small and disadvantaged businesses to get more to help Caltrans rebuild California. And we've been doing a lot of events in the districts, contractor boot camps to help contractors understand how to do business with Caltrans. In addition to business development, we are also working on developing the future transportation workforce, our youth. Caltrans Office of Business and Economic Opportunity administers the National Summer Transportation Institute program with federal highway funds to introduce disadvantaged middle and high school students to transportation-related careers. This program was created to address future transportation workforce needs by ensuring that the transportation industry has a well-qualified and trained and diversified workforce. This year, 4 colleges applied to and were granted funds to run the program. They're Cuesta College, the Mineta Transportation Institute at San Jose State University, and Cal State Universities of Stanislaus and Los Angeles. And this year, 125 high school and middle school students were accepted into the 2 to 4 week competitive program that encourages, inspires, and educates minorities, females, foster children, and those from low-income families. And they get to go to Florida to the
Flight Center.
Flight Center. Thank you. They get to do something really cool. No. Sorry. And finally, as has been noted, I am retiring, and I've really enjoyed the collaboration with the commission and Susan and the staff here. We've had a lot to do the last few years, thanks to all the funds from SB1, and we've done it well together. And I know that work will continue on very well, but I really have enjoyed the collaboration with the staff and with all of you commissioners as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Lori? Hearing none. Thank you, Lori. Appreciate it. Okay, we're now going to move on to Vince Mamano, Federal Highways.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me be the 8th to welcome Melissa Kananave. So I worked with her for many years, and I've called her every one of those last names, so just feel free. She'll respond to all of them. But no, we had a great relationship, and I was very excited when I heard David Kim was coming here, and Alyssa. Apparently the dark side of the force is strong, brought them to the dark side, but we'll fight through that. Hey, keep it quiet, I'm heckling. Don't heckle while I'm heckling, come on. Yes, sir, thank you, I appreciate that, Mr. Tavoloni, very kind of you. But no, we've had great relationships, and I think one of the things that you're going to find with both Alyssa and David are Very reasonable, very rational, and great listeners. Alyssa was the Chief Financial Officer for Federal Highway Administration, and I mentioned this in another circle that she was one of the first the first Chief Financial Officer that would ask the question of my position, well, why are we doing it that way? If it's a problem for the states, yes, thank you for saying that. So she's a good listener and has a good handle on what happens here, and at least for the Federal Highway side, and I'm glad to see you there. A few announcements. We have the notice of funding opportunities. Everybody should know about the build opportunity. July 15th, I think, is when that closes. ATC MTD, which is the Advanced Transportation Congestion Management Technologies Program. I know. That closes on July 19th. And a couple of things, one of the things I want to just make sure I point out and remind people, as you're putting those, and this is kind of a statement to everybody back here, as those applications are going in, the review process goes like this. Goes into Office Secretary, and they'll put a team together. Right now, they're actually looking for the different modes, who wants to be on any of the team. And then they'll reach out to me in the division and say, hey, what's the status? Is there a lawsuit on this project? Where is this project from a funding standpoint? And when people put in there that we're going to have this match, so if you're going to have a 40% federal dollars in the grant and 60% local or state dollars, one of the things I guess I would emphasize is make sure you can show that match exists, or there's a good opportunity for that. So that's something that a question gets asked is, how confident is that match? So it's just something to think about as you put in those applications. I can't tell you how to do that or whether to do it or not, but it's just a question I get asked is, how confident is that match? So that's something to think about as you apply for grants. Another thing that's coming out in the Federal Register is the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices update, the MUTCD. So that's coming out. There's a lot of impact in California because California has a California MUTCD. And so that covers all the signing, all the stuff that happens on all public roadways, signs, signals, everything. So striping, all that stuff. So, man, am I done already, Clark? Is that it? Man, this is getting a tough crowd. So we talked about SAFE Act and that regulation that's coming out. One of our deadline things that we were trying to hurry up and get a lot of things done with the ozone determination is done by, it needed to be done by August 3rd. So all the regions needed to have their ozone conformity determination done by August 3rd. We have all but 2 have been already approved. We've put in some expedited measures to help us review it quickly and make those determinations, and we're anticipating that those 2 are going to get done by August 3rd. Remember, we were talking at one time, like, what happens if the new regulation comes in before August 3rd? There's only 2 that would be impacted now, and we're working with them, and we're very optimistic that will be taken care of. And lastly, Madam Director, too bad. So I've had an opportunity to work with Lori for my entire time here in California. When I got here, she became director of the District 11, we became fast friends early, worked together on a lot of different things. But the things that have impressed me the most with Lori is her pride in her agency and her team. You can see that every time, and I get to work with Lori also at a national level. Her pride in California, her pride in the relationships, and you can see that in District 11, the relationships that they have there, the collaboration that goes on down there. Her dedication to safety, you can see that in just the stuff she's done, particularly recently with the safety summits that they've implemented here in California. We talked at the last meeting about 10 a day. Can we save 10? If we can save 10, then we'll save 10 again tomorrow. And Lori's done that very directly with her projects and making sure that the transportation industry is safe. And I don't think people realize the national leader that she has been. I had an opportunity to be with her at WASHTO, the Western Association of State Highway Transportation Officials. And it's just fun to watch her lead at that level. It's an opportunity that a lot of people don't get to see. But Lori, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your collaboration, and I appreciate the pride you have, but in your agency. But you should have a lot of pride in yourself because you did a fantastic job. So thank you for everything you've done. That's all I got.
Any questions for Vince? Vince, which two areas don't have their
I knew you were going to make me say that. MTC and SlowCog, but we're working with them. I'm anticipating that'll be taken
Okay,
care
and
of.
stick around for our discussion on the safe vehicle rule, because we are told a little different of what happens if this new reg comes in, but we'll defer that till we get to that, so
Because
hopefully...
I can't answer even that, so, yeah, I could stick around. I'll just be this
Okay, but
pretty face that you like to look at.
listen hard, okay, when we're talking? Okay, thank you, Vince.
All right, thanks.
But don't leave. Okay, we're going to move on to number 11. Luke, regional agencies.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners, Assemblyman Frazier and Senator Bell. I'm Luke McNeil-Kerr with the Placer County Transportation Plan Agency and the Regional Moderator for 2018-2019. And I want to welcome Undersecretary Cano and also Director Berman. We really appreciate all your efforts, and especially with the implementation of Senate Bill 1. And congratulations on your retirement. So at the RTPA meeting, we discussed the proposed federal safe vehicles rule, which of course is tab 25 on your agenda, which could potentially delay up to 2,000 projects and $130 billion in transportation funding. And I really want to thank Tanisha Taylor from CalCog for all her efforts. We had a very productive meeting yesterday, and you're going to hear some more updates today. So we really appreciate CalCog's efforts. We received an overview of the draft 2020 STIP guidelines and fund estimate, which is being presented to the CTC today under tab 18 and 19. And the regions look forward to continuing to provide comments on the guidelines before the adoption in August. And we're looking forward to, of course, programming funding on important regional projects. For the SB1 funding, you heard from Director Branson about the success of the local streets and roads for those cities and counties that are eligible for funding. Of course, that's tab 21 on your agenda. And we really do appreciate the coordination of CTC staff with the regions. And we're excited that for the first time in August, we might be reporting 100% compliance. So we're really excited about that. Finally, we had our election of our new moderator and vice moderator for 2019 and 2020, and I want to introduce Philip Chu from San Bernardino County Transportation Authority. He will be the new moderator for 2019-20, and then we have our new vice moderator, Yvonne Garcia, if you could stand up, from Butte County Association of Governments. He will be the new vice moderator for 2019-20. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Luke? If not, thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Okay, item 12, rural counties, Mara.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mara Toomey, Chair of the Rural Counties Task Force. The Rural Counties met on May 10th and discussed the following issues and concerns. In regard to the safe vehicle rule, the rural counties are concerned about the impact on air quality and transportation funding, and particularly the ability to complete critical safety projects in rural communities. The rural counties appreciate the efforts of the Commission to rescind the rule and support the transmittal of the letters to NHTSA, US EPA, and the California Congressional Delegation as recommended by staff later on your agenda. We'd like to welcome Undersecretary Cano and look forward to working with her in the future. And finally, the rural counties would like to congratulate Director Berman on her retirement and want to thank her for all her service on our behalf. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Maura? No? Thank you, Maura. We'll move on. Item 13, self-help. Keith Dunn.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here today. I would like to welcome Alicia as well and thank Director Berman for your service, and we've enjoyed our working relationship with you, and we look forward to building one with you over at the agency. Self-help counties has had a busy last couple months. I'll start with AB 252, which is the legislation that we're sponsoring to continue the authority for the department to act, to perform the NEPA authorization services for the federal government. It passed out of the Senate Appropriations Committee yesterday, has moved to the floor. We have received unanimous support going through this process. We'd like to thank Assemblyman Chairman Frazier for stepping in and presenting that bill with us yesterday. The author was unable to be there, so we always are grateful for his support. That bill, unlike the other, I think this is the third time we've done it, has removed the sunset, so hopefully it's the last time that we will be running this bill. So we're very pleased with that, and again, thank Chairman Frazier for stepping in and filling in there. We had a meeting down in San Diego last week and had an opportunity to discuss some of the issues surrounding the Federal Aviation's decision to try and redirect aviation excise tax on aviation fuels. Those discussions continue. I know the state government, particularly the Department of Finance, has been engaged and involved with us. I am in the understanding that they're going to be going back the week of July 10th and meeting with the FAA and talking about some of the efforts that the state of California has made to comply with some of these regulations. I know that we remain extremely concerned and have been supportive of an effort sponsored by Congresswoman Napolitano to address that rule change. To date, Congress has not been able to come together and move that bill forward. We've been supportive of a number of efforts to do so, including some appropriation moves. We will be remaining active in that effort and encourage the state of California and thank them for their continued interaction with the federal government, and we'll see where this goes. But it remains an issue of great concern to us as a matter of policy. We also had the opportunity to meet with Director Branson and her staff yesterday on the state-local partnership issue. I'm pleased to say that the self-help counties, after a large debate amongst ourselves, were able to come to a supermajority position recommendation to the commission, hopefully one that is puts this issue to rest for a long time. We'd also like to thank Chairman Bell and Chairman Frazier for SB 277 legislation that the self-help counties also endorsed to provide some guidance on this issue. There's been a lot of confusion on what the intent of this program was, and we're hopeful that the discussions that took place with the commission and the legislative directive is going to make this issue one that we can look back on and be proud of the work that was done and the decisions that were made. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We continue to appreciate the working relationship we have with the commission, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Keith? Hearing none. Thank you, Keith. Okay, we're going to move on now to item 14, Innovations in Transportation. Garth?
Yes, Commissioners, tab 14 is an information item, and unfortunately, Josh Boone from the Veloz Electric Vehicle Collaborative was unable to join us today, but I know we're going to be watching a video, but before, I think Commissioner Kehoe wanted to tee it up.
Thank you. May I, Madam Chair? That's right. Garth put together a good program with Josh, but Josh was taken away by a special project that you're going to view momentarily. Veloz is an organization that's comprised of the global automakers, private sector companies, state agencies, and many others, a large board of directors, all dedicated to accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles by the general public. These are personal cars, not a lot of freight involved here, but it is clean transportation. So they located a volunteer actor to take the lead role. So let's look at the video and see what this new ad is going to look like.
Attention customers, I want you to listen very carefully. On behalf of Big Oil, I want to thank you all for choosing muscle cars that use gasoline.
Long live the American muscles.
Recently, Arnold Schwarzenegger teamed up with Veloz to promote the benefits of electric cars.
To show how they save time, money, and the environment, he went undercover as a used car salesman.
Hi, how are you? Howard Kleiner.
And tried to sell people gas cars instead.
Hello. Looking for a car? Hey. Howard Kleiner.
Oh, Howard
Good to
Kleiner.
see you, yeah. What are you looking for?
We're looking for, like, electric. Fuel efficient, like, quiet.
I have exactly what you're looking for. What do you think, huh?
How about this, huh? Yeah, actually, I'm looking for some kind of electric hybrid mix.
Don't bullshit me.
Okay.
I'm just tired of spending money at the pump.
The pump?
Yeah.
Oh, this is great. You go to the gas station and you pump. Let me tell you something. The pump sometimes is more satisfying than sex.
I'd like to use something that could get me into the carpool lane, actually.
Oh, you mean a sticker? This is your lucky day. Anyone that buys a car today gets a free bumper sticker. I'll be back. Here, carpool lanes are for sissies. I support the oil company monopoly. You can choose any of those. Can a battery-powered car do this?
I think it's a piss off my neighbor.
You them right. It will impress your neighbors. This is testosterone. Yes.
My friend got an electric car and he got a tax credit.
You want a tax credit, or do you want to have street credit? You know that the planet is too crowded right now, right? Gasoline cars create pollution and it curbs population. It brings it down. That is the idea.
That's not the way to go about that. So quiet in here. I love it.
But that's the problem, you see? Because it's so quiet that you hear literally everything that your family says. Think about that for a second. You don't like the car, huh?
I do like the car.
I love the smell of exhaust. Smell this.
That's what we didn't want.
No.
You know what? Actually, can I just get a supervisor in here?
Could I please talk to a supervisor?
Can we get a supervisor?
to the manager?
All right, let me get the manager, all right?
Okay.
All right.
This is crazy.
Hungry and grouchy.
Yeah, me too.
Hello, I'm Harry, the sales manager. You ask for me?
It's the same guy.
How can I help you?
No.
Electric cars save money, time, and environment without sacrificing any of the fun and excitement of driving. And with over 40 available makes and models, you've never had more reasons to go electric. Go to electricforall.org and join us. Do it now. Come with me if you want a lift. If it burns gas, we got it.
To see more videos, learn about electric cars, and find the one that's right for you, visit electricforall.org.
Okay, there you have it. What do you think?
Glad our ex-governor's working.
Another couple of minutes. Can I just tell you, this was a very lucky coming together. Governor Schwarzenegger was super cooperative, and Veloz and the board of directors is very grateful. He did volunteer. He's not an amateur, but he did volunteer. And as I said, Veloz is about accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles by people like you and me. There's over almost 50 models available in California. We are just short of 600,000 models on the road now, 600 cars in California, and about 1.3 million nationwide. Now, that's still a tiny fraction of the whole car market, but it is growing substantially month over month and year over year, so that's good news. This video, we want to get away from the kind of scolding, how can I say it, sort of moralistic reasons to buy an EV, a tongue-in-cheek, humorous approach we think reaches more people, and the reaction I've seen from friends and neighbors has been super positive. So I looked at it this morning. There are 37,000 views on YouTube. You can look at it on YouTube or Kicking Gas or Electric for All. This afternoon, it was over 100,000 views when we were coming into the meeting. So it is accelerating fast. We've got 20,000 charging stations in California. The market is growing. You'll be seeing this. They're going to buy ad space on Facebook and Twitter, in addition to having, sending it around, in a viral manner. So if anybody wants to link up and send it to their address book, all their friends and neighbors, please do so, because we want to kick gas and get to electric transportation. That's my whole spiel, and I'd be happy to answer questions if people have them.
Surely there's a question for Chris. Hearing none. Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
And we all enjoyed that, so good to laugh. The best medicine. So, okay, now we're going to move on to item 15. And I was told that Assemblymember Aguilar-Curry was joining us?
No, Senator Bell has a...
Okay. Okay.
She's not here yet.
She's not here yet.
She's not here yet. She'll
Okay.
join us later.
Okay. And Assemblymember Freeman, same?
I think Senator Bell had to leave by 2.
Okay. Okay. So we'll just take item 15. Paul, you're up.
Commissioners, tab 15 is an action item on state and federal legislative matters. Commission staff are recommending you adopt support or support in concept positions on 4 bills and send letters to the authors. First, Assembly Constitutional Amendment 1 by Assemblymember Aguilar-Curry, which, if approved by voters at a statewide election, would lower the voter threshold from 2/3 to 55% for local governments to impose special taxes to fund transportation and other infrastructure projects. And Chair Inman, I believe Assemblymember Aguilar-Curry is going to be here at 2:30 to speak in support of her legislation. Second is Assembly Bill 285 by Assemblymember Friedman, which would implement a commission recommendation to require the California Transportation Plan to include a forecast of the impacts of emerging technologies on the state's transportation system. Third, Assembly Bill 970 by Assemblymember Salas, which would create a new program to fund transportation services to and from non-emergency medical services for older individuals and individuals with disabilities. And fourth, Senate Joint Resolution 5 by Senator Bell, which would urge Congress and the President of the United States to address federal funding needs for transportation. In addition, Commission staff are recommending you send a comment letter to Senator Bell regarding Senate Bill 277. This bill modifies requirements for the local partnership program to apportion 100% of funds on a formula basis, and it makes other changes related to the funding distribution. The comment letter prepared by staff highlights a few areas of the bill where the legislative intent is unclear. First, the bill is unclear on whether funds are to be distributed upfront to eligible entities or on a reimbursement basis, and whether the Commission is to approve lists of projects in lieu of project allocations. These distinctions are important for accountability purposes. Second, whereas the Commission currently determines how to distribute program funds through its guideline development process, the bill instead requires a formula. However, the bill does not specify the formula methodology, as has been done in the past, for example, for the Proposition 1B state-local partnership program, where the legislature specified the formula in statute. And third, the bill authorizes eligible entities to save up funds to use in a subsequent year. This was also allowed under the Prop 1B state-local partnership program. And it resulted in entities only programming a little more than half of their funds each year. And that resulted in over $300 million being available in the 5th and final year of the program that could have been programmed earlier had there been a requirement to do so. Thus, language to provide assurance that funds are efficiently utilized and do not remain uncommitted could help improve the legislation. That concludes my remarks. Staff recommends you approve this item.
We have a motion by Commissioner Van Kennidenberg, a second by Commissioner Alvarado. Is there discussion on this item? Yes, Senator Bell.
Yeah, I wanted to. Okay. Thank you, Commissioners.
Chair Frazier and others. I appreciate the conversation on my bill, SB 277. I want to make a few comments on this. Well, I nor my staff had time to review your letter we just got, right now. It appears after a quick read that most of these matters are technical in nature, and we're clarifying them through my office or through the guidance process with the transportation agency. It's my understanding also that there are agreements that we've reached with the Self-Help Counties Coalition and other major counties that have created a compromise, and we'll be amending the bill based on those, and which in turn will provide clarification that the commission is seeking on these issues that you raise in your letter. While I appreciate the comment letter, it appears that most of the requested clarification will be covered by these amendments that are being drafted, and always my staff will be available to answer, provide clarification, any questions that you or others may have on this. So thank you.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? By abstaining, that motion carries. We will move on now to item 16. Jofel.
How's it going, everyone? Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chair Inman, thank you so much for allowing me to present. Assemblymember Frazier, Senator Bell. This is an informational item related to the Commission's stakeholder and community listening sessions. In 2018, Commissioners and staff visited Salinas Valley and the town of Gonzales for a town hall meeting where they were able to meet and listen to different stakeholders on how transportation projects can improve the quality of life, safety, and access to jobs and education. Building onto this town hall setting, Commission staff began organized community stakeholder listening sessions together with our local and regional partners, many of whom sit here today, in hosting these Commission meetings. These are staff listening sessions, and I just want to give you a brief overview on what we had found out. And the goal was to be able to invite a broad spectrum of stakeholders and reach out to groups and individuals who have not interacted with the Commission or any of our transportation partners. Staff was to listen on their issues, concerns, and opportunities for future partnership. On the slide you have here, on the picture on the left, is our very first meeting in Riverside County, where we held a roundtable discussion with 17 different organizations covering a variety of perspectives: environmental justice, public health, social equity, local and regional government, parks and recreation, community college, and even private businesses. Actually, during one of the conversations, our attendees, even though they are bringing different perspectives, all equally agreed that strictly removing freight traffic from the 91 corridor is not the one-size-fits-all solution for their congestion, environmental, and economic needs. In fact, they all collectively advocated that Riverside's partners in land use prioritize placing truck depots away from neighborhoods and schools, and also for the region to switch to cleaner options of mobility that would still provide economic opportunities for their communities while addressing environmental goals. And as staff, that's like music to our ears. Real people and real-world solutions. So we continue this in Placer County, which is the picture on the right. And most recently, with LA Metro, picture on the left, and on Sandag. We anticipate to schedule the rest of these meetings throughout 2019, and we'll have one tomorrow at the Caltrans office in partnership with SACOG. To date, Commissioners, we've had over 70 organizations from a broad spectrum of stakeholders. Just to give you an example of some of the folks that we've interacted with. An organization called Independent Living Partnership, who works with volunteers who drive the seniors and disabled in Riverside. In Placer, representatives from Placer People of Faith Together, who also happen to sit in their local board of their Alliance for Retired Americans. In Los Angeles, we had folks from the LA Airport. In San Diego, we had the Del Mar County Fairgrounds and the San Diego Taxpayers Association. We had a broad spectrum of stakeholders, and what we're hoping to get is a perspective from all of the different users of our system. This slide shows the top 5 comments surveyed from our attendees. Now, this is in no way, shape, or form scientific. It's just a small sample size, but it represents some uniformity and trends from what people from all walks of life think about improving our transportation system. So why continue doing this? Staff would like to share with you that this is not just a check in the box exercise. We as staff are here to listen and document, but what if what folks share is appropriately reflected in our competitive SB1 programs, then we can provide those comments to the guidelines development to our program staff. Now, if they were to ask resources or technical assistance, then as commission staff, we're able to follow up and provide them with the guidance or be able to coordinate them to other entities that could potentially address their concerns. But if they bring a policy solution that is worth exploring, that we're able to invite not just those stakeholders, but really folks in subject matter experts, practitioners, academia, and policymakers in a broad forum where we can delve into these policy solutions and eventually perhaps find their way on our annual report to the legislature. In fact, we're going to be having that policy forum at the end of July, and transit being the number 2 thing that our members have said about is going to be part of our forum. This is partly why we are continuing this, is because we want to be able to listen and hopefully have your continued support. We're very excited that this is moving through. Again, tomorrow we have another meeting with SACOG. We anticipate to have this till the end of 2019, and thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all the help, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer that right now. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Do we have discussion? Yes, Commissioner, or Chair Frazier.
Thank you, Chair Inman. I just wanted to also include and thank Director Brenson. I had brought to her attention as the chair of the Select Committee for the Intellectual and Developmentally Disabled in California. We've been doing hearings throughout California, 8 to date, and the resonating issue for the population has been transportation. So the director has met with Nancy Bargeman from DDS and has initiated a task force on how the commission can be more proactive and help the special needs community on attaining a successful life. So I want to thank you for that effort.
Yes, Director Berman.
I would just want to thank Assemblymember Frazier for bringing this to our attention, and it's something that we look forward to working with you on and finding a solution.
Okay, we do have a guest speaker on this. I have a representative from Assemblymember Friedman's office. Actually, it's going back to item 15, but we'll go back. We didn't get this on time. So, Ms. Kingsley.
Hi there. Thank you so much, and sorry for my delay. Just representing Assemblymember Laura Friedman today, just wanted to really thank you for the approval of support for AB 285, California Transportation Plan. It's an update to California's long-term transportation planning document to incorporate current greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, such as SB 32. So I really, on behalf of Assemblymember Friedman, she couldn't make it today, but really thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 17, budget and allocation capacity. Paul?
Commissioners, tab 17 is an information item on budget and allocation capacity. Clerk Paulson will present an update.
Good afternoon. If I could ask your indulgence, I wanted to recognize one of the staff of the Division of Budgets at Caltrans who will be retiring in 2 days. If I could ask Athena Glidden to stand up. Athena has worked. Athena's worked with the Division of Budgets for 15 years, and it's no exaggeration to say that her fingerprints have been on thousands of projects that have been brought before you. She manages the area that decides how to put the funding to the projects and make sure that they're prepared for you and for allocation. Her fingerprints are on the fund estimates and presentations, and to some extent, I'm a puppet right now for Athena as I continue with the presentation. I also wanted to wish Vince happy birthday. I understand the federal act, its first enactment was June 29th. I'm not sure how old that makes Vince, but he looks good. Looks good. Thank you again for that indulgence. So we are at the very end of the fiscal year, reporting on allocation capacity as of last meeting in May. The capacity of $6.9 billion for the year that we're concluding had been allocated at that point to the tune of $4.8 billion, leaving $2.1 billion in capacity. Much of that will be allocated during today's meeting. The good news is that whatever isn't allocated generally doesn't disappear, but rolls forward into allocation capacity for the coming year. Again, I mentioned this at the last meeting. STIP is showing at 110%. My accountant brain says that there's something unusual about that, but my budget brain says it's completely okay. And the main point is that we have brought forward projects so that they'll be completed more quickly, relying on future capacity, and there's no intent to recommend that we don't proceed with STIP projects coming forward. This next slide is a draft of allocation capacity for the coming fiscal year. It lays out the allocation capacity for the traditional programs, the programs that were created or augmented by SB1, as well as bond programs. This is a draft. In total, it shows $5.5 billion for the coming fiscal year. But again, it doesn't include the roll forward or carry forward that will occur with the capacity from this fiscal year. Next meeting in August, I'll bring forward to you information on the final allocation capacity that will be updated with that information. I wanted to provide just an update on what SB1 revenue has brought into the road maintenance and rehabilitation account through the end of this fiscal year. So this is a partial year last year and a complete fiscal year in the current year. The revenue for the first three categories, active transportation at $200 million, local partnership program at $400 million, and state bridges and culverts at $800 million. Those are statutorily set amounts. There are annual amounts committed from the revenue in those programs each year. And then the balance of the money in the road maintenance rehabilitation account is $1.5 billion for maintenance and state highway operations and protection program. And that the money in the shop, of course, has been available and allocated by you for projects during the course of the past year and a half. It's important to note that although not in this account, the local streets and roads have received an equivalent $1.5 billion in SB1 revenue for the needs of local streets and roads. So just looking forward to the next period, any day we expect the governor to sign the Budget Act for next fiscal year. And in August, we will come forward with the final STIP fund estimate for 2020, and as I mentioned earlier, the final allocation capacity for next fiscal year. And with that, I will conclude and be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Clark? Okay, hearing none. Thank you. We will move on now to item 18.
Commissioners, tab 18 pertains to the draft 2020 STIP and aeronautics account fund estimates. This is an informational item only. The action item to approve the fund estimate will be presented at the August meeting. Before turning over the presentation to Clark, I have a few short remarks. At the May meeting, the Commission approved the assumptions on which the draft fund estimate is based, except for one assumption to increase the minor program reservation within the SHOP program from 150 to 250 million. This was done to allow Caltrans time to provide additional information to justify the increase. Based on information provided by Caltrans, Commission staff plan to recommend you approve an increase to 200 million at the August meeting for the minor program. This would account for the effects of inflation since the minor program reservation was last adjusted 8 years ago. In addition, Commission staff plan to recommend in August that you approve another modification to the assumptions regarding the future budget change proposals. This would acknowledge that these proposals are both for the Commission as well as Caltrans. And with that, I'll close my remarks by noting that Commission staff have worked with Caltrans closely over the last month to revise the draft fund estimates, which Clark will now present.
Thank you, Paul. Just to reiterate, where we are at this point is bringing forward, and you have just received recently information on the draft fund estimate for 2020. This is the beginning with actual numbers in hand over the next period for you, commissioners, CTC staff, and other stakeholders to provide input for what will become the final 2020 fund estimate that's brought forward in August. We have a workshop on July 22nd in which we'll delve more deeply into the fund estimate details. During the period leading up to the August meeting, we'll have the opportunity to adjust as necessary for the input we receive, as well as I'll say the unlikely event that any legislative or budgetary events occur that would impact the fund estimate information. So I wanted to, before I get to the punchline of actual dollar amounts, talk about some of the issues that have impacted the capacity for the STIP and SHOP that I'll show you shortly. One is fuel consumption, and in this chart, the blue line shows our assumptions in the last fund estimate 2 years ago with regards to fuel consumption. The orange line shows the assumption that is included with regards to fuel consumption in the 2020 fund estimate. This really, as has been alluded to earlier, reflects some very good things in terms of changes in the types of vehicles that are driven and the travel patterns in the state. But it does have an impact on revenue that's available and what we are projecting in the fund estimate. So this is one element that impacts available funds for the STIP. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the what used to be the priced excise tax, now the incremental excise tax rate. So if you recall, in past, there was an expectation, assumption in the last fund estimate that the Board of Equalization would increase this tax rate, and that was an action that was not taken. So that left a gap in what we had assumed and projected revenue for the STIP compared to what the actual revenue that was received. And at that time, I think a very wise and correct decision was made, which was not to adjust the STIP program, not to delay projects, not to reduce the resources that were available, but rather to continue and deliver projects that had been committed to without delay and without disruption. And again, I think that was a very appropriate and prudent decision that was made. But it did mean that projects and the program was moving forward, relying on resources from future periods. A secondary factor of a similar nature has to do with the advancement of projects and commitments. So on this chart, there's yellow boxes and arrows. What this really represents is projects where there was SB1 funding that was being nominated for projects, and those same projects included STIP funding to make the projects whole in terms of the full funding package. And again, I think a very wise and correct decision was made to move forward with those SB1 projects, to put those projects into effect, to have the benefit of those programs, but it did necessitate advancing STIP funding from future years into the current year. Similarly, the fund estimate from the prior period allowed the advancement of STIP funding for project development so that STIP projects would be developed more quickly and available sooner. And that was from future years brought forward. So again, what this really means is that we were, I think, appropriately, aggressively delivering projects, but using capacity in the current period that was really slated for future years and drawing on future capacity. A final element specifically as it relates to the shop. This chart displays for you the SB1 funding for the fund estimate period that's being proposed. SB1 dedicates resources for maintenance and shop programs for the state highway system with the intent to accomplish the targets for asset condition that are laid out in SB1. It does not, and I think wisely does not, stipulate the exact amounts that will be used for maintenance versus shop projects, which have a different character and a different delivery timeline. And so this chart shows the amount of funds that are being committed towards the shop, towards a specific call out for shop bridge and culvert work, for maintenance and maintenance work related to bridge and culvert. And the point, getting to the final point of all this discussion, is that in the 2018 fund estimate, shortly after SB1 was adopted, there were some assumptions made about the proportion of maintenance versus shop. Since that time, we've had the opportunity to delve deeply into our asset management plans, reflected in the State Highway System Management Plan, and have realigned the proportion in terms of maintenance and shop. And there's a higher proportion of maintenance that's reflected in the current fund estimate, which impacts the capacity that is reflected for the shop. So with all that preface, this is the information somewhat detailed about what the capacity reflected in the draft fund estimate is for the programs. For the shop, there is $20.6 billion in capacity, of which $9.2 billion has been programmed already in the current shop program, which leaves $11.4 billion in capacity available for programming. The STIP shows $2.6 billion in capacity, of which $2.2 billion has been programmed in the existing STIP program, leaving a balance of $400 million. So focusing on the STIP, you'll see that there's most of the funds have been committed in the program, and this has much to do with the points I had made earlier about commitments that have been made to move STIP projects and SB1 projects more quickly, and that has drawn down the resources that are available for programming in this current period. I think that is the result of some very good decisions from a policy standpoint and bringing forward the benefits of programs earlier. However, it does have this impact. You'll see in these numbers that the STIP fund estimate period of 5 years, the resources are committed for the most part in the first 3 years. And that's intentionally to ensure that we have resources to cover the STIP program that's been adopted already. This is probably the most important thing that I'll mention during this discussion. By doing this, there's no projects that have been programmed for the STIP that will be delayed or deleted or altered in any way. The structure for the fund estimate for the STIP allows us to continue with the commitments that the STIP program project reflects. Finally, I'll just answer this possible question that may be on people's minds, which is, what about the 17.3 cents that becomes the incremental tax rate in a few days, which is an increase? And why isn't there more in the STIP capacity because of that? And the real answer is because those funds had already been assumed in the prior fund estimate. And I'll just go back for a second to this chart. If you look at the outer years here, the blue line was the prior fund estimate assumptions with regards to revenue, and the orange line is the current fund estimate assumptions. And there, you'll see in those out years, they're essentially the same. because we knew in the last fund estimate that the 17.3 cents increase would be in place in the next few days as we do reflect it in the current fund estimate. And so essentially we knew that those resources would be there. The STIP program of projects was adopted with those resources assumed already, and that's why you don't see a large increase in capacity. It had already been assumed when we adopted the 5-year look 2 years ago. So finally, I think that question is about what we were anticipating in terms of stability for STIP funding. And this, I would characterize, and I'm really plagiarizing Teresa of your staff, we're still in a transition period, bridging from lack of resources previously, the infusion of SB1 resources, and dealing with the decisions that were made as we were implementing SB1. So in this chart, the dark line shows the resources for the STIP during the 5-year STIP period. And you see what I talked about previously about the resources being very heavily loaded in the first 3 years, and then a much lesser amount during the last 2 years. I think the good news is getting past this transition into the future years, and when we adopt the fund estimate in a couple of years, we will see that evening out and a steady path without this very high uptick and then a downtick. We'll have the opportunity to have a very steady and anticipated revenue level committed on a consistent basis year to year. So the last element, the draft fund estimate, also addresses the aeronautics account. Much smaller numbers, but the aeronautics account fund estimate covers fully the annual credit program of $1.5 million. It assumes $4 million in transfers annually from the local airport loan account. The aeronautics fund estimate is a 4-year instead of a 5-year period, and it brings in $4.6 million annually during the fund estimate period, again relying on the annual transfer from the local airport loan account. So as I mentioned previously, the fund estimate workshop will be held in July, and we'll bring forward the final fund estimate for the August meeting. And with that, I'd be glad to address any questions.
Do we have any questions for Clark? Yes, Commissioner Dunn.
Just a quick question on explaining this to me. On your chart that says factors impacting STIP capacity revenues, and you have a 2018 fund estimate assumption compared to a 2020 fund estimate assumption, why would we not see actuals as comparing the actuals to how you got to an assumption? In other words, we now know what was used in 2018, and we're halfway through 2019, and my sense is actually gas consumption is up, and yet, I mean, that's just intuitive, and yet you're showing a trend line down for the assumption. Does that make sense?
Yes. So the information on the chart, I'm going to go back so that we can see this if it doesn't make folks dizzy. So the first year is actual data from 17-18. And so while the feeling might be that fuel consumption is increasing, the actual trends that we've seen and the projections from all of the sources that we use, including the Department of Finance, show a downward slant. We could certainly bring back information looking back a couple of years based on what the actual was compared to what our prior estimates were.
I guess that's my question. The blue line is an assumption, or is it an actual?
Well, with 17-18,
right.
It's actual, but the rest was the assumption that had been made in the last period about years that are still future.
Yeah, it might be just a minor point, but it would be nice to see the actuals.
Sure, we could
right?
do actual with compared to our assumptions. we'll follow up with that. Thank you.
Clark, before you leave, I have a question on that same chart. Is it possible for you to give us similar kind of charts on vehicle miles traveled and also on alternative fuel vehicle miles? I don't know if you know that specifically, but on our journey, and assuming that Governor Schwarzenegger is going to increase the adoption rate, I think it would be good for all of us to know how much of that consumption is from a fuel shift versus how much of it is from miles per gallon, because we also have some very robust discussions around miles per gallon right now, and to really understand how many miles, what are people doing, because it feels to me like they're driving. So, but I'd like some numbers.
Sure, we can
to
follow
go
up
with
with
that.
that.
Is down, driving's up. So, yeah.
Any other questions? So does this mean with your colleague retiring, we're not going to have these great graphs?
There's a lot of brilliant people in the Division of Budget, so I think we can continue forward, but it won't be as easy, I'll say that.
We're visual learners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have been joined by Assembly Member, I can't even say Assembly Member Aguilar Curie, so thank you very much for joining us today.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and I apologize for running late today. I was in a committee hearing. I'm here today. It's important to me to come here today to address you in person because ACA 1 is so important to me and the state of California. You are our state's leaders on transportation and infrastructure needs. Thank you for taking the time to review ACA 1 and take a formal support position. ACA 1 will lower the local vote threshold for infrastructure and affordable housing measures from 2/3 to 55%. This bill will empower local governments and communities to make decisions about what projects to prioritize and how to fund them. They can do it on their own or leverage matching dollars in partnership with federal and state programs. If passed by the legislature, ACA 1 would simply go to the voters for statewide approval. ACA 1 is a realistic, optional funding tool for our locals. Thank you for your support today, and I ask for your continued backing as I work to make this go through the Assembly, the Senate, and then on to a statewide ballot in 2020. We need everyone's help in this room to support ACA 1. Thank you very much, and thank you for your support today.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, comments for Assembly Member? Thank you for coming over. We appreciate it.
Oh,
So
my
we had a
pleasure. I'm
tough
just sorry.
schedule.
I hate running late, but I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are now going to move on to item 29.
Actually, item 19.
19, excuse me.
Commissioners, item 19 is an information item. These are the draft guidelines for the 2020 STIP. These guidelines have two parts, the 2020 specific guidelines and the permanent guidelines. The 2020 specific guidelines were distributed to you in your package in pink. Highlights of the 2020 specific guidelines that staff is proposing is the schedule. This is the schedule the staff is proposing for the development of the 2020 STIP. The second item is the funding. As we heard earlier, there is no new capacity in the first 3 years of the STIP. The positive capacity is only in the last 2 years of the STIP. This could potentially be a challenge for those projects that are programmed in early years and have cost increases. Those projects may need to be delayed, or the agency and the state may need to delay another project in order to accommodate for the increase. PTA capacity remains at 0, pretty much. So again, all transit projects will need to be eligible for federal funds or state highway account funds. Staff will consider programming projects with uncommitted funds only from Solutions for Congested Corridors, Trade Corridors, and Local Partnership Program, provided that the uncommitted funds are secured by June 2020. If the funding is not committed or secured, the project will be immediately deleted. We want to avoid getting ourselves in the same situation we did in the 2018 STIP as much as possible, but we want to provide our partners with some flexibility as well. On the permanent guidelines, we are proposing minimal changes. The most substantial changes in the right-of-way. For Caltrans implemented projects, the STIP will require that all projects with capital cost of $10 million or more must come to the commission for individual allocations. This provision is consistent with the SHOP guidelines. We have scheduled our workshop on July 22nd to discuss the guidelines and the fund estimate. This will provide an opportunity for our partners to provide input, and we will bring final guidelines to you at the August commission meeting. That concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Teresa, I would just ask that, given the meeting we had yesterday and the discussion we're going to have on the safe vehicle rule, integrating that carefully with whatever you see as an opportunity to collaborate with our partners would be good.
We have invited Tanisha to attend our workshop because, yes, it is very important. We are aware of the impacts that could have on the STIP. So, yes, thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure that our timing and everything doesn't hurt any of our partners. So, thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 20, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tab 20 is an action item to approve the 2019 Aeronautics Capital Improvement Plan, or CIP. The CIP is a 10-year fiscally unconstrained listing of capital and planning airport projects and is primarily based on airport master plans. The CIP is compiled biennially by Caltrans and is submitted to the Commission. Per California Public Utilities Code, the CIP is one of 8 elements that make up the California Aviation System Plan, or the CASP. Caltrans Division of Aeronautics has regularly updated and submitted the CIP to the Commission per statutory requirements. However, as Commission staff has indicated at prior meetings, that has not been the case with the remaining 7 CASP elements, which are statutorily required to be updated every 5 years. The CASP is the only statutorily required modal plan prepared by Caltrans that is wholly out of date. Commission staff is extremely concerned with this lapse. Amy Choi, the recently appointed chief for the Caltrans Division of Aeronautics, is here to answer any questions, if necessary, on the CIP. Commission staff has reviewed the document and recommends approval of the 2019 CIP.
A motion by Commissioner Tavaloni, a second by Commissioner Gardino. Is there discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Abstaining? That motion carries. But Amy, before you walk away, congratulations on joining and taking that position. And it sounds to me like you could be running the FAA. So you have amazing bio. So we're all very impressed and look forward to working with you in this capacity. And then just encourage you on the safe vehicle discussion, because I think some of our airport partners might be perhaps impacted by it as well. So we appreciate you staying engaged on that. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Committee.
Well, being a member of TACA years ago, I always felt that the aeronautics section of Caltrans was somewhat ignored. So I'm glad we have a professional heading it up now. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be a part of the aeronautics team and back in the lead, and I hope we make everybody proud, and thank you again.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. We will then move on. Item 21, Alicia.
Thank you, Commissioners. Item 21 is an action item to adopt the fiscal year 2019-20 Local Streets and Roads Initial Report of eligible cities and counties, and direct staff to transmit the report to the State Controller as indicated in Attachment B. The report identifies 527 jurisdictions that met all eligibility requirements by the Commission's May 1st submittal deadline. Those 527 listed jurisdictions represent 98% of the total possible jurisdictions that are eligible for funding. The 12 cities that did not meet the May 1st deadline have also been identified in Attachment B. All 12 have indicated that they will be coming in for subsequent eligibility on August 1st, on or before August 1st. The subsequent eligibility list will be brought to the commission at the August commission meeting for adoption. Should all 12 of the cities meet the August 1st deadline for subsequent eligibility, this will be the first time in the program's existence that we will have obtained 100% jurisdiction eligibility for the funding program. But per statute, should a city or county fail to come in and meet the initial eligibility requirements as well as the subsequent eligibility requirements, the State Controller's Office will redistribute the fiscal year program allocations or apportionments to the other eligible cities and counties for that fiscal year. Some highlights that we would like to identify from the fiscal year 1920 project list submittal process and period. Staff did conduct 4 two-hour fiscal year eligibility technical trainings for the local cities and counties as well as our regional partners. These were held in March. We assisted and provided guidance for the improvements to the CalSmart reporting system. We also reviewed eligibility requirements and provided project list development assistance to the participating jurisdictions and assisted with their resolution development. Roughly 400 jurisdictions were represented at these trainings, and they were represented by over 500 individual participants. So this was our highest participation ratio that we've ever had in the program. Between the fiscal year 2018 and 2018-19 submittal period and 1920 submittal period, staff did note that we had roughly 43% in our turnover of our contacts for our local cities and counties. This means that 43% of the individuals that we were working with in the previous 2 fiscal years are no longer with those agencies. So we were retraining and educating on the program itself again this time. Roughly 25% of the jurisdictions that did submit by the May 1st deadline had actually submitted draft lists and their draft resolutions prior to taking them to their city councils and county boards of supervisors to commission staff for review and feedback. This allowed for 96% of those jurisdictions who did this to have flawless submittals without any necessary edits and all met compliance in their first submittal try. This is also the first submittal period that the commission did not need to send a non-responsive letter for intent to seek eligibility to any of the jurisdictions. So we were very pleased with that improvement as well. We also decreased the number of subsequent eligible seeking jurisdictions by 60% in comparison to last year. So these are all very positive notes. One thing that we would like to increase in the coming fiscal year would be to receive the submittals prior to the last week before they are due. What we identified in this year was that every year, they are given 5 weeks to submit within the CalSmart system. In the fiscal year 1920 submittal process and period, only 15% of the project lists were submitted in the first 3 weeks of the submittal period. In the last 3 days of the submittal period, we received 50% of the 527 submittals. So this becomes very taxing on staff, and we don't have a lot of time to review and make necessary edits, and we want to ensure the integrity of the information that's being published by the commission and being brought forth for adoption. For fiscal year 2020 and 2021, we do hope to achieve 100% eligibility by May 1st. Seeing the drop in subsequent eligibility seeking jurisdictions is a positive note, and so we are hoping to continue in that direction moving forward. We also want to note that coming up, we will have the local streets and roads expenditure reporting technical training webinar on August 13th. We intend to send out the save the dates by June 27th. So again, this is for the expenditure reporting for the 2018-19 fiscal year. and those reports will be due on October 1st to the commission. We will open the submittal period for the reports up in CalSmart no later than August 26th, again allowing for no less than 5 weeks to report. We would like to point out that the list of projects that were received as a part of their eligibility process have all been posted on the Commission's Local Streets and Roads Program website. So 527 cities and counties are represented. It compiles 2,146 projects. Out of those projects, 1,537 are new intended purposes, and 609 are relisted from previous years. And we do make it clearly identified and show the fiscal year that each project was originally proposed in this list. The list will be updated come the August Commission meeting to ensure any subsequent eligibility cities and their lists are incorporated into that document as well. We would like to thank all of our regional programs, stakeholders, and the California State Association of Counties and the League of California Cities for all of their assistance. Without them, we would not be at 98% right now with our attainment and eligibility. And I would especially like to thank Alika Changizi and Celeste Acivas, who is hiding back there. She's our student assistant, for all of their hard work and dedication. As I stated, having 50% of the submittals come in the last 3 days and less than 30 days to review can become very taxing, and they did an incredible job, and we wouldn't be able to provide you what we're providing you today without them. Are there any questions?
Good work. Good work.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So this is an action item?
Yes, we are recommending adoption. I'm sorry.
Move it.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Alvarado, a second by Commissioner Dunn. Is there discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? But abstaining. That motion carries. We're going to skip item 22 because it's timed at 3 p.m. Sorry, Terry. We're a little ahead of our schedule.
You're doing great. You're doing awesome. You're heading the game.
I ain't doing it. Moving right along to item 23, Chris.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Item 23 is an information item. At the May 2019 Commission meeting, Commission staff provided draft recommendations for the local bridge seismic retrofit program to the Commission to promote the project delivery of the 63 projects that remain in the program to the construction phase. Since that meeting, Commission staff moved forward with revisions to the existing account guidelines, and the revised guidelines were presented to stakeholders at a workshop conducted on June 19th and the Highway Bridge Program Advisory Committee on June 20th. Commission staff received excellent feedback from stakeholders and committee members and would like to revise the implementation schedule for the account guidelines to provide adequate time to incorporate feedback from the stakeholders and incorporate those comments, and then again review those comments on the revisions that have been made. Additionally, statutes require the guidelines to be reviewed by the legislature at least 30 days prior to adoption by the Commission. Commission staff intends to present the revised guidelines at the August Commission meeting prior to the submittal to the legislature. And the guidelines will be brought forward for adoption at the October 2019 Commission meeting. Please note that item 24, which was a Commission action item to transmit the revised account guidelines to the legislature, has been withdrawn from the agenda. Commissioners, are there any questions?
Do you have any questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Chris. Item 24 has been withdrawn. Item 25 is a large item, so I think maybe we should take this opportunity to do a bio break. So if you all can get back here in 10 minutes, we'll be ready to go for the 3 o'clock hearings.